Nate Burleson, who played for the Seahawks for 4 seasons. Nate, what kind of owner was he?
Well, he was hands-on. But first, let me say my condolences to the Allen family, the friends, and all those close to him. He was somebody that was very hands-on. And as Steve Weiss was saying, might not have been as visible all the time, but you knew that he had his hands in everything. And for me, it's something that kind of hits me differently than any other athlete that might have played for the Seahawks or the Sounders or the Blazers. You know, I'm a young kid from Seattle, a young black kid from the inner city, and to see men and women doing big things in the city that I'll call home, that's something I always carry with me, so much so that it sort of shaped who I am now as a grown man. I mean, you guys mentioned all the things that he did with finances, technology, aerospace, the real estate, the sports teams, the sports and entertainment, filmmaking, everything that he was doing, he did at such a high level and with such dignity and grace and luxury. And now, me as a father of 3, a married man, I find myself trying to do all these things. So, you know, oftentimes you run across individuals, whether you're close to them or you just work for them, and you look at them from a distance, transcended, you know, who he was as an owner, how much money he had, even the color of his skin. But I looked at him as somebody that I aspired to be. And lo and behold, now at the age of 37, I find myself doing all these different things because he was one of those individuals. I said, he's from the city I'm from, and he's doing it at such a high level. Someday, I want to do things at that level, and everything that I touch, I want to make sure I have an impact. I remember signing with the team and leaving Minnesota, they were great to me. 3 years spent there. That was my infancy stages of the NFL. And then I signed with Seattle, coming back home. And I saw just a different level of ownership in the way that he approached making sure that the players were so comfortable that at the very basis of it, they just had to play football. And literally, the first time I hopped on a plane, I thought, it wasn't like this in Minnesota. Like, I'm sitting in the lap of luxury. And I just kept thinking that he's going above and beyond what it means to be an owner. So when I did see him, he would walk in. It was kind of like seeing a unicorn or Bigfoot. You know, it's like, oh, there he is. And he had that type of energy about him that when he did come around, guys kind of took a step back. It was like watching, you know, a real-life rock star on stage, and he would just glide by. He'd give his handshakes and hugs with a smile on his face and just gracefully walk out the back door without all the glitz and the glamour and the guyness and even the sometimes bravado that some owners may have across all sports. He did it in a very humble way. And for a guy who, you know, is caught between, you know, all this new money and trying to be an exaggerated version of himself, you see somebody that has all the money in the world, and some would say all the power in the world, and he has everything going for himself and could easily be the loudest one in the room. He wasn't. He was the most soft-spoken one, but held the most power in his heart. So it's one of those things that if you're from Seattle, you know him to be more than just a guy that was involved in sports and technology. He was one of the living legends we had in that city, and he's going to be truly missed.
Nate, it's interesting you used the word soft-spoken to describe him, and we heard Steve Weiss talking about the fact that he wasn't one of the most visible owners. He wasn't that guy that was addressing every issue in front of a camera. But what I always thought of him was that he seemed to empower the people that he hired in the organization. We talk about the moves that John Schneider makes, not that Paul Allen wants him to make. We talk about Pete Carroll and all the power that he has there. He seems to empower his players. We've had a lot of outspoken players go through Seattle in the last few years, and the organization has had a lot of success. How much of that do you think can be attributed to the fact that Paul Allen hired good people and let good people do their jobs?
You know, it's a shining example of who he was as a man. We live in the same world where oftentimes the title you have or the money you have in your pocket determines how you treat people and how you delegate responsibility. Paul didn't do that. As smart as he was and as controlling he could have been, He didn't. He hired the right people. He trusted in the fact that he went through the right process. So he will be missed. Paul Allen was a living legend as a kid from Seattle. I'm glad that I spent some moments with him.